Hello everybody and welcome back to Audio Talk. Today we're going to review Cherry Amplifier's DAC DAC 1HS. Before I get into the review, I just wanted to share a short story of how I learned about the DAC. As I mentioned in my last review, I had bought the Cherry Amplifier's desktop maraschinos, some spectacular monoblocks. Check out my review, it really goes into detail, and I was blown away by them. And one thing I like about this hobby is that you can call the manufacturer and probably the designer and get to know them and get to understand their design philosophies and maybe even what music they like. And so I gave Tommy O'Brien a call a couple times to do just that. And I realized that we had some common interests in our music. He's a real sound engineer with a passion for music. And I appreciated Tommy, and I'd let him know. I said, I think your amps are fantastic. In fact, I haven't heard anything like them near the price range. During the conversation, he mentioned that he'd been designing some DACs. And I thought, well, I'm kind of covered there, Tommy. I just bought an Exogale Comet with an outboard power supply. Highly rated DAC. I had auditioned several DACs, and that was the one I chose. Very musical. Went really well with my Spatial Audio X3s. And really well with his amps. So I said I was taken care of in that regard. Again, a couple more conversations ensued, and I'd say maybe 2-3 weeks passed. He brought up his DAC again, and he mentioned that DAC is really synergistic with his amps. They're both DC coupled, and he was trying to explain to me the power of being DC coupled and no phase shift and what that does for the listening experience. So at this point, Tommy had really gained some credibility with me. His amps were spectacular. I realized that he designed digital circuits. DDA converter might be right up his alley. My Exogale Comet was about $3,000. I got it for about $2,100 on a really nice deal. It had an outboard power supply. And I thought, well, Tommy's DAC, and I got a USB converter with it. With a combination of his DAC and his converter was like $1,200. It was a demo sale. So I thought, I could probably sell my Exogale Comet if I didn't like it as much and maybe even make money in the deal. So with that said, I took him up on his offer, got the tube-like DAC, which was interesting because I chose the TL, the tube-like DAC, because in my mind's eye, I was still thinking, I've got this really articulate, musical-sounding digital amp or digital hybrid amp, and I thought maybe a tube-like DAC would be, really good combination. It's kind of like a tube preamp with a solid-state amp. I thought that, maybe the best of both worlds. So I got the tube-like DAC. I put it in my system, and I was stunned and blown away. And so it was so impressive. It was so articulate, and it was very warm, musical. I was blown away. In fact, I was as blown away by that DAC as I was my amps, which is saying a lot. So I talked to Tommy some more, and he made mention that he says, I have another one called the 1HS. It's a little bit more precise. The specs are better. And to me, it's even more musical. And you might like that even better than the TL, the tube-like one. They were at both demos. He had a demo, a 1HS. So he says, he was okay if I sent the other one back, if I liked the 1HS more. So I gave it a shot. I said, send me the 1HS. So I put that in, and that DAC was even a level above it. Surprised and just amazed, and it blew me away. So with that said, that's the DAC we're going to review today, the DAC DAC 1HS. So let's get started. Okay? So we got the DAC DAC TL that I mentioned, tube-like design. I had it for about a cup of coffee. It's spectacular, amazing deal for the money, but not as good as the 1HS in my opinion, and that's the one I went with. It's got a little bit more precise engineering to it. The specs are better. It's cleaner. To me, the better DAC of the two. There's also a higher level one, a 2HS. It's got ultra precision. Specs are even better. And I've got some fantastic listeners on my channel that have shared with me that they had the 1HS and the 2HS, and they preferred the 2HS. It's even a step up from the one I have. But mine's so good, it's absolutely worth reviewing. And the fourth in a series is the DAC DAC 2HSV. It's the same DAC as the 2HS, just with a digital volume control. Okay, here we go. They all look basically like this, except for the one with the volume control that you'll see in a second. There's very Spartan looking, small form factor. That's the front. Okay, that's the rear. Got balance connections, outboard power supply, coax cable to a USB converter. You can see the front of the converter here, the back. You see your connection there, then the other connection to your source. Okay, and then here's the one with a digital attenuation. So same thing as the 2HS with a digital volume control. That's the front, of course, and the back looks just the same. So let's get into Tommy's design philosophy. Sound quality comes first. Measurements are very important and they help guide Tommy's designs, but at the end of the day, the listening tests are what matters most, and he'll make adjustments to make sure that they sound the best. What I've noticed in Tommy's products, they all have a very similar sound, which is basically not even being there. It's basically not in the way. The music just comes through. It's incredibly articulate, musical, timbre is spot on, sound stage is deep, bass is tight, high end is just pristine. So in this DAC, no difference. So let's talk about specifically and drill down in some of the specific design philosophies in the different tactics that Tommy's employed on this DAC DAC. So power quality ensures that the DC power is incredibly clean. It doesn't affect performance. Okay, the DC voltage is filtered, regulated, and filtered again to assure the utmost clean power. Jitter is no longer a concern. Data is reclocked internally with a low jitter oscillator, rendering jitter immaterial. DC coupled, I mentioned that in my opening. What's key with DC coupled is there's no phase shift. The timing of the music is just spot on. Let me give you an example. If you're a drummer, you learn to hit the bass drum and the cymbal at the same time to accentuate the dynamic note that you're hitting. So when you have DC coupled, the timing comes, it's perfect. There's no phase shift. The bass is there. There's no delay. If you have phase shift, you might just be off a little bit in that kick drum and that cymbal, ever so slightly, enough to notice it. And when you have a DC coupled amp and DC coupled DAC, you're getting a significant part of your system DC coupled, and all that synergy comes together to give you a seamless listening experience. It's relaxed, it's musical, it can be intense, it can be subtle, but the timing is definitely special and something that you'll definitely note when you hear this DAC. Okay, let's get into the over-engineering part of Tommy's design philosophy. Each component that Tommy selects is carefully chosen and implemented. In this particular DAC, the signal path is 1 inch. Pretty impressive, huh? And that leads to lower distortion, more cleaner music. Just amazing. The measurement's 124 dB with a 0.004 signal to noise ratio. Really strong on the specs. And the DAC supports 24 by 192 files. I personally have a lot of 2496 and 24192, and I have a subscription to QBuzz that also has 2496 and 24192, and this DAC renders those files fantastic. Just amazing, the sound quality from this DAC. And in conclusion, this is a very special DAC. I said it before in the desktop Maraschinos. Tommy's hit another home run with this DAC. This is a world-class DAC for $1,200, and that's a demo price. You need to check his website to see his current prices. I don't keep up on his current prices, but that's what I paid for this demo. Slight scratch on it. Just fantastic. The music quality that you get is really stunning. Tommy's designs are highly musical and lifelike. The realism in this DAC is fantastic. When I plugged this DAC in and I hooked it up and played it, my mouth dropped. It was as much of an experience as with the desktop Maraschinos was over my tube equipment. It was just amazing for $1,200. And really, that's the essence of this channel. Audio Talk's mission is to bring you products that you might have heard before, but you might not have heard before. And they're going to always be high level of quality. Sound quality to me is everything. I grew up playing acoustic guitars, acoustic pianos, and listening to strings live. And that's what this is about for me, is to be able to create a stereo system that you feel like the players are in the room, that you get to know the players because you can hear so much of what's happening from the musician in the recording. And this DAC does not disappoint. Another home run. Hats off to Tommy on this. And I look forward to seeing you next time when I have another game changer of a product that's fantastic, an amazing deal for the price. So until that time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Give me a like, subscribe, and we'll see you the next time on Audio Talk. Take care.